afternoon, Spartans and Spartan families. This is Miss Rains here. We haven't done a video blog in a while, so I figured I would touch base with you guys, answer some of the questions that we're getting on a pretty regular basis, and just make contact basically. So one of the things that we want parents to know is that the text blast system that we use, the Remind text blast system, it's Miss Zerger or myself or other school employees that are sending out those blasts. So when you have a question and you reply, that they're not always manned. So we're not always looking at it. I usually catch the responses of questions a day or two later, sometimes longer. Same with Ms. Zerger. So if you have a question that needs to be answered immediately, like something about a meeting being canceled or a school event the next day or what have you, those types of things need to be called into the main office or emailed to the appropriate person. Because if you're responding to those text blasts and expecting a response, it may be days before you get a response. Not that we're ignoring you, but that there's 1,000 families out there. So it's a lot to keep up with. So just know that that text blast system is not always manned on the other side. So if you're getting blasts about athletic events, whether it be parent meetings or athlete meetings or games or things like that, or paperwork that's due or fees that are due, if you have questions regarding any athletics, those questions, while it's easy to hit reply to us, we don't always have the answers. It is best if you email the athletic directors, Mr. Weston and Mr. Rivera. If you email them, they can usually answer all of the athletic related questions, and their email is across the bottom of this video right now. So again, that's for Mr. Rivera and Mr. Weston with any athletic related questions. Want to talk about attendance for just a moment. Remember that when you registered your students that you signed a contract. If your students are unexcused absences, more than 10 in a school year, they are subject to dismissal. That does not mean immediate dismissal. It means subject to dismissal. We take a lot of things into consideration. Remember that if you are taking your student out early, bringing them in late, or they are absent because of a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment or something like that, that you need to submit that paperwork. Our attendance clerk this year is Miss Wilson. Her email is now on the bottom of the screen here. So you need to email that to Miss Wilson when the kids are going to be absent or late or checked out early, excuses or even not excused absences. If you want to just send a parent note in, while it may not be excused, it gets noted in the student's attendance record that you're aware that they were not here for that period of time. It is in your best interest, because we are all human and we do make mistakes, so it is in your best interest to keep a copy of those doctor's notes if you are submitting them. Whether that means that you come in and ask us to make a copy, we keep a copy and you keep a copy for your record, or you can scan it to Miss Wilson, or you can always take a picture of it with your cell phone and email it to her, and then you keep the original, and that just helps to track it. Sometimes things do get misplaced, not often, but occasionally it happens. We're human. So it just kind of covers you, your student, as well as us if you do keep copies of those. And again, emailing those to Ms. Wilson is the best way to ensure that the attendance record is updated. When attendance records need to be updated for something like that, it could take 2 or 3 days for that to reflect in Skyward. So just be patient. If it's not reflected in 2 to 3 days, I'd send Miss Wilson another email just to follow up and make sure she got the original one. Sometimes, for whatever reason, our emails go to junk mail when we email parents, and occasionally parent emails go to junk mail here as well. We try to make a habit of checking our junk mail every couple of days. But just in case, if you're not seeing it updated in Skyward, go ahead and shoot her an email. Again, her email should be at the bottom of the screen right now. So you may be getting a lot of text blasts about EOC preps and FSA preps. EOC is the end of course exam that applies to U.S. history, civics, Algebra 1, biology, and maybe a few other courses. And then there's the ELA, which is the reading, English Language Arts reading, FSA also. We are in testing season now, which means that your students are going to be taking EOCs and FSAs and final exams in December. So between now and those tests, your students are going to have the opportunity to take advantage of preps. Preps happen on Saturdays, different subjects, different Saturdays, different subjects, different times, different Saturdays. Those go out via text blast. Everybody gets it. You have to know whether or not your student's in that particular course and needs to be at that prep. So we also, in addition to blasting it, we also have them listed on the calendar on the school's web page, and we try to remember to put it on the school's Facebook page also. So you should be able to look there and see what those schedule of preps are. For the majority of, not the majority, for some of the EOCs, the test ends up being 30% of your student's overall grade. So it really is in the best interest of your student to attend as many of those preps as possible for the courses that they are enrolled in. Just gives them a little bit of an extra edge to ensure that they do well on those tests when those tests roll around. If it's Algebra 1, the kids actually have to pass the test in order to graduate. Some of the other ones, they just have to take the test. They have to pass the course, but they don't have to necessarily pass the test. Your students should have a good idea of which of those tests they are. We may do an assessment or testing vlog a little bit later. That right now, just want you to know what those text blasts are about. They are about the EOC and FSA preps that are offered on Saturdays. So I covered attendance, covered the preps, parent-teacher conferences. So I know that we had a lot of requests for parent-teacher conferences in October at the midterm point. And I know that you're probably all looking at grades right now because we are about to wrap up this grading period. So when you guys are requesting parent-teacher conferences, you need to understand that our policy here at Somerset is that a parent can meet with all of the teachers at one time, not just one teacher. So while you may only have an issue with or question for one teacher, if you schedule a PTC, it's going to be with all 4 of your students' teachers, or however many teachers your student has at that time. So if you don't need to speak to all of them, we strongly encourage you to email the teacher first, the one that you have issues with or questions for. Email the teacher first. We do have that 48-hour policy. My teachers are supposed to get back to you within 48 business hours, and if they don't, then send them another email, and the second time copy me and make sure you put it on a second attempt, so that I can see that that you had attempted before. If you just forward the same email a second time, copy me, I'll make sure you get a response. But that is the best way to start, is going through the teacher. If you don't get what you need at that level, then I would encourage you to email the department head. If it is math, the department head is Mr. Meyer. His email is on the bottom of the screen. If it is an ELA reading or foreign language class, English, then the department head is Mrs. Butler. Her email should be on the bottom of the screen. If it is a science class, the department head is Mrs. O'Connor. And if it's a social science or history course or elective in that realm, then the department head is Mr. Sinsky. So all of those emails should have just gone across the screen. Oh, and if it's physical education or other electives, then the department head is Mr. Weston. So start with your teacher. If you don't get anywhere there, then go to the department head, and you should get some relief at that point. If you don't get relief at that point, then go ahead and send an email to myself or Mr. Treador, and we'll go ahead and get involved at that point. But it really does get resolved faster if you start with the classroom teacher or the department heads, because if you're going directly to myself or Mr. Trader or one of the other administrators, it's going to take longer before you get a response. It's going to take longer before we're able to get the situation resolved. So it's a lot faster if you start with the teachers. If after you've done that you still want a parent-teacher conference, you want to come in and sit face-to-face, then you give Miss Peggy a call in the front office and she schedules it. Again, you'll be sitting with all of the teachers, not just one of them. But we understand that there's often a need for that, and that's fine, but those are scheduled through Miss Peggy. They're only scheduled Monday through Thursday, and they're always scheduled at 3:45 in the afternoon. So keep that in mind. So that's for parent-teacher conferences. And the only other thing that I would say is that we have some exciting news. We have construction about to start on this campus. We have one more building plus the gymnasium that's going to be built. I think we're looking at breaking ground in January if all goes well. We've gotten everything submitted to the city for review, waiting on construction plans and permits at this point. So once that's closer to starting, I'll do another vlog about how the traffic pattern is going to happen and buses and things like that. We'll talk a little bit about security while construction workers are around, things like that. So we'll cover that in a different video a little bit later on. But just know that that is on the horizon. We do have that up and coming. And I think the last thing is you should have received an email from Ms. Zerger with recommitment letters. If you intend for your student to return to Somerset next fall, you need to get those in as soon as possible. If you don't intend to come back next fall, we also need that information so we can open up your student's seat to the next child on the waiting list. It is also enrollment time, or application time, I guess, for new students. It started on November 1st and it will close on March 1st. So if you know anybody who's trying to apply to come to Somerset for next year, now is the time to do it. The applications are available on the website, and Ms. Zerger is available to answer questions by phone. We're also running tours of the campus now. I believe the tour schedule and sign up for that are also on the school's website. So at some point you should see Ms. Zerger's email down here as well as the website address down here. So I think that's everything. Again, always here for you. Send an email, make a phone call. Just remember that if you are texting back the text blast, it may not be answered immediately. All right. Thanks and have a great day, Spartans.